Hi, I'm Dr. Meghana Dikshit, and today we're going to talk about the difference between boundaries and barriers. It is very essential to understand why is it important to set your boundaries and how are they different from the barriers. Your major relationships in your life depend on the relationship you have with your own self and outside world. So it's very essential to understand how to set your boundaries and not be in the zone of barriers. Your love relationships, your communication, your relationship at work, your relationship at home, everything changes once you understand this basic difference between the boundaries and barriers. Your whole life revolves around the communication you have with your own selves and with the external world. With the understanding of boundaries and barriers, you will allow the world to treat you the way you want to be treated. Most relationships in the world are affected because sometimes people are not able to say no at the right time. And sometimes people impose their ideas and their values on the other person, whereas the other person resents it but can't say anything about it. So it's very, very essential to set your boundary and allow the world to understand what you want and what you don't want in a very, very healthy way. So basically boundaries are very proactive. As I said earlier, these are very, very healthy versions of your own self, where you are telling people what you want in your space and what you don't want in your space. Whereas the barriers would be the hyperactive defenses, where you're all the time anxious and stressful that what this person is going to say and what this person is going to say and how do I react to this and how do I go back in my own shell. So a very simple example with this is you can think of a boundary as a fence with a gate where the energy is just going in and out. And nothing is stagnated there, whereas you very, very clearly know that there is a fence, there is a gate, the energy will come and go, and people you don't want or certain things you don't want in your life will stay out of the fence. Whereas you can see each other, but it's not going to impose on you, or it's not going to push you, or not going to go under your skin. And the other is, whereas if you think of barriers, the barriers would be like having the shield all the time on you, or maybe carrying the sword along that now I'm going to see this, that this person says this, you all the time in your head thinking about it constantly, that how do I dodge myself from the attacks which are coming from outside world. That's not a very healthy way of living, because when you're doing it, you know that how much anxious and you're stressful. Just by thinking about it, I'm already getting excited and feeling stressful. So I can imagine the people, those who are living with it, it would be so difficult to go through it all the time. Now a very simple question people ask me, that how do you set a boundary versus barrier? So I would say that everything in our life works around a context and an intent. So first of all, set an intent. The intent of setting a boundary is open communication. You want to keep the communication open. You want it healthier. You want more and more support in your life. You want more and more people coming to you, approaching to you. But at the same time, you know that they're not going to impose on you. So your intent is very clear about open communications. Whereas if you observe, if you have any kind of barriers, you will observe that the whole intent of the barrier is shutting down the conversation. You don't want to communicate with the people, and certain kind of people maybe. So I would like to give an example of a client coming to me, and she was in her late 20s, had already changed some 5-6 jobs, and she was not able to work with any of her bosses. After changing the 6th job, she realized that there is something going on there that she is not realizing. So she just came and talked to me and said, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm not able to, have a good relationship with my bosses. Then when we started talking, and we realized that the whole thing has started in her childhood, where her father was abusive, angry, and very, very strict. At that point of time, she could not say anything, and at the moment her father would say anything, her immediate barrier would to shut off, not tune off the whole conversation, and just take the abuse lying low, because she couldn't do much about it. The whole thing translated eventually when she grew up into any authority figure. So even though her bosses were not like her father, in her mind, they were a representation of her father. So every time they would give her any work, she would feel that they are giving her extra work, they are making her wait longer, they are troubling her, and it's kind of, she started feeling very uncomfortable, resentful, and she felt that the whole world is basically there to abuse her. And all the time her barriers would go up, and in that case she just felt that she can't work with that person and she had to leave the job. Now she was losing on opportunities constantly with this attitude. I'm very, very thankful that she realized it much earlier in her life and she seek the help she needed to. She came, she spoke, whereas we realized that what we need to do is we need to just release her resentment. The most important aspect of setting up a boundary and letting go of the barriers is you will realize that the person who sets a healthier boundary has already dealt with the pain they have gone through in their life. They have acknowledged, dealt, and having that courage to let go of that heaviness, to let go of that burden from their space, to allow the new beginnings to come in their life. And whereas the barriers are still carrying that emotional burden on their shoulders, it's not easy to walk with that burden. You may have seen the image of an atlas. That's what a person who holds the barriers is carrying with. So as soon as possible, deal with your barriers, deal with your resentment, your regrets, let it go and allow the healthy boundaries to set in your space to increase the new energies and new beginnings in your life.